Good afternoon. I'm Kristin Phillips-Hill, and I have the honor of representing the 93rd District in Southern York County. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us here today. I'd also like to thank my colleagues who've joined us as well, Representative Keith Gillespie, Representative Dawn Kiefer, and Senator Mike Regan. Last session, I authored a bill that was signed into law to help men and women with teaching degrees whose spouse serves or has served our country. And the idea for this bill came from a casual conversation I had with a woman who was impacted by an injustice and chose to speak up. And that happens rather frequently in the General Assembly. What doesn't happen very often is a member of the legislature crafting a bill that has actually been a victim of the very crime that a bill addresses. So I'm sure that if I ask you this question, how many of you in this room have had your credit card information compromised or stolen at least once? Probably every hand in this room would be raised. And that brings us to House Bill 1918, my legislation, which would be yet another tool for law enforcement in its war against credit and debit card skimming, a crime that has taken place in the 93rd District once too often. In some cases, an innocent citizen visits a convenience store, uses his or her credit or debit card to pay for gas at the pump, and later finds out that their personal information has been stolen and used for criminal purposes. Other times, a bank or credit union customer conducts a transaction at an ATM only to find out later the numbers on their card are being used by someone other than themselves. You know, this crime impacts everyone, and it's happened to me. It's happened to me actually twice. Later on, you'll hear from Greg Rowe from the Pennsylvania District Attorney's Office. And as we were working on this legislation, I got an email from him. I believe it was August 11th, and he said, my credit card information was taken 20 minutes ago. So no one can escape this crime. And this crime is not indigenous to York County. More than 15 million Americans fell victim last year to credit card theft, with criminals stealing approximately $16 billion. Of that figure, more than $2 billion was stolen using credit or debit card skimmers or scanners at gas pumps and ATMs. With only 16% of consumers paying for gas using cash, criminals have a chance to hit the jackpot if they can safely lift personal information and get away unscathed. House Bill 1918 has co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle and many regions of the Commonwealth. And when I first started working on this bill, I was questioned as to the need for this legislation. Simply put, these devices used for skimming are not currently illegal, even though those devices have no other use than for criminal, deceitful, and deceptive purposes. Current cases are prosecuted under theft and identity theft statutes. House Bill 1918 would update and upgrade Pennsylvania law to help prevent, eliminate, and punish the use of fraudulent credit and debit card devices. The legislation would make it illegal to use or possess any device capable of assessing information encoded on the computer chip, magnetic strip, or stripe, or other storage mechanism of a payment card. First offenders would face a third-degree felony charge, while a second or subsequent offense would result in a second-degree felony charge. I'm hopeful that House Bill 1918 will succeed in adding some teeth to Pennsylvania's Crimes Code, and that the General Assembly will move quickly and send this bill to the governor's desk. Today, we take the first step. Tomorrow, the House Judiciary Committee will consider the bill. I'd like to thank Majority Chairman Ron Marsico for agreeing to add the bill to the committee's agenda. House Bill 1918 also has the support of various members of the law enforcement and business communities. Many of them are here today, and I'd like to invite them to come forward and speak. And now I'd like to introduce Senator Mike Regan of York County.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's my honor to be here with my colleagues and with some very distinguished members of law enforcement. Thank you for being here. This is a very important bill, and I applaud Representative Hill for bringing it forward. Earlier this month, I saw a story on Penn Live where two men in a woman were wanted in connection for skimming a victim's credit card number down in Lancaster and using information to purchase money orders and other items at a York County Walmart. Just a week before that, ABC 27 reported that a credit card skimmer was discovered at a Citizen Bank ATM in Mechanicsburg, right in the heart of my district. Credit card fraud isn't a new issue for Pennsylvania or the United States. Our country is responsible for nearly half of the world's credit card fraud, but only about a quarter of the world's credit card volume. But stories like these put a spotlight on how South Central Pennsylvania has become ground zero for what is relatively a new type of fraud. That's why I'm here with you today, and I'm proud to be in support of Representative Hill's bill. It's a very important bill. I know firsthand from my time in federal law enforcement that criminals are becoming increasingly tech savvy, and the advent of criminal card skimmers is just the latest example of that type of crime. We use the Consumer Confidence Index as a barometer for the health of the U.S. economy. One of these key metrics is the index of consumers' perception of business conditions. So let me be very clear. Every day that these card skimmers remain on the streets, consumer confidence in Pennsylvania takes a hit. Part of the formula for sustainable economic growth is creating an environment where everyday transactions can be conducted without fear of identity theft or financial hardship. The reality is that our laws are outdated and deficient, both in the prevention and punishment of this crime. So again, I want to thank Representative Hill for this innovative legislation which protects. One of the great things about being in the General Assembly is having the ability to implement policy and laws that help protect your constituents. And this bill clearly does that. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
My name is Tom Kearney. I'm District Attorney of York County. When I learned of this bill, I thought to myself, this is a no-brainer. I mean, why have we not thought of this before? Felonies, to make this a felony is so very, very important. This morning I got gasoline, and I thought, geez, somebody could be scamming me. And I looked around, but then I remembered, I didn't find anything, but then I remembered that I saw a report on one of the television stations, Good Morning America, or one of those in the morning, Today Show, I think it was actually, where several people were asked to go to a gas station pump where there was a device on there to scam their credit cards, and they could not, they didn't, not a one saw it. Even after they were asked to look at it and advised that it was there, they couldn't find it. So these devices are there. They're out there at stations, at gasoline stations, convenience stores. They're out there at, you could be walking in a crowd. I mean, those of you who are not as old as I get solicitations for the AARP, and one of the things that they have offered is to have a little pocket where you can put a little container where you can put your credit cards on, so that you can be walking down the street and not get scammed. The point is that this affects all of us, and it affects everybody in our community. As it was pointed out, it undermines consumer confidence. How do you keep your stuff safe? And one way to do it, usually when these people are caught, it's the penalties are not all that great, and this would make it a felony. And I'm very, very pleased with the bill. I hope it swiftly passes the committee and goes to the full House and then to the Senate. So thank you, Representative Phillips-Hill, for doing this, and I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Conway, President of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Representative, thank you for sponsoring this bill, and to her colleagues in the House and Senate, thank you for your support as well. Financial institutions, banks, credit unions, and others are held accountable for these costs many times when scanners and skimmers are used to violate data on consumers. And we think that this legislation is long overdue. The credit union movement in Pennsylvania is very pleased to support the legislation. And I think all financial institutions across the Commonwealth feel strongly that this is an important step when it comes to consumer data security. So kudos to the representative for sponsoring it. Our credit unions across the state look forward to supporting the legislation, and we appreciate the interest among the media today. So thank you.
Afternoon, Detective Richard Blaze, Southern Regional, York County. I was invited to speak about how much law enforcement is dealing with this problem today and how much occurrence it is. And it's great that we finally have an ability to hold someone accountable for a large loss in revenue and financial money related to this crime. And it's great to have a tool in our belt that we can start arresting these people for. Otherwise, we wouldn't. And it's to keep the legislators up with technology and have that momentum is great that we have the ability to arrest these people. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Rowe, Legislative Director for the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association. I'm the person that Representative Phillips-Hill mentioned earlier. When she and I first started working on the bill, she had mentioned that she had been a victim, I think twice, of credit card skimming. And after we sort of finished our first draft, a couple weeks later was when I sent her the email, because I got a call from my credit card company saying, did you just make a purchase at a Food Lion in Central Virginia? And I didn't shop at Food Lion. I hadn't been to Virginia in a long time. So the answer was clearly no. Somebody had gotten a hold of my information, which shouldn't be surprising, that the two of us are one of many victims of this crime. It's going up. And as Senator Regan said, the U.S. accounts for 47% of all the credit card fraud, yet the volume of overall transactions in the U.S. is just 24%. Versus the rest of the world. It's happening here. It's happening in the U.S. and it's happening in Pennsylvania. So this is an important bill. When we're victims individually, everyone else is a victim because the costs get passed down. Institutions that are victimized, companies that are victimized, we all end up absorbing those costs in the long run. So we look forward, all the district attorneys look forward to seeing this bill get enacted, and we just really want to thank Representative Phillips-Hill for bringing this idea forward and working with us in helping shape this really important legislation.
Well, I would like to thank all of the individuals that spoke today. This legislation also has the support of the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association. Alex Beloga, their president and CEO, was unable to join us today. In the crowd, we also have Mr. Dan Reistetter from the Pennsylvania Bankers Association. They are also in support of the legislation. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank two people. Natalie Potter, who interned in my office prior to her starting law school at Widener this fall. She did really wonderful research that was very helpful. And Mr. Brian Roche. I actually asked Brian to come up here and speak, and he said, you know, members of the press really don't feel comfortable on this side of the podium. But the work that he has done, the exceptional coverage that he has given to this crime in central Pennsylvania, really helped to shine a bright light on this issue. And I have to give Brian credit for really putting this on my radar. You know, I at first thought it was just my problem, and just because it's my problem doesn't mean it's anyone else's problem. But his coverage really made it clear that there are a lot of victims, and this is a big problem. So thank you very much for your coverage. Thank you again to all of you. I see Representative Brett Miller from Lancaster County has joined us, as has David Gonzalez from our York County Economic Alliance. Grateful to have you here as well. We would be very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
It was mentioned that you currently have the ability to prosecute these people under other laws.
Correct.
What's the big advantage? I know that the district attorney referenced the idea that it would raise the penalties, but can you elaborate a little more on how this will make it easier?
Correct. Well, first off, Detective Blaze and I were talking. He doesn't have the ability to make an arrest if someone possesses this device. There is no other use for this device other than to defraud you of your money. If he does a routine traffic stop and sees one sitting in the back of the vehicle, he can't do anything about it. So with this law, he will be able to take that device into custody and make an arrest.
How does this up the penalties?
Well, it creates a felony offense for this. So currently, and I would think that perhaps Mr. Rowe would be best to talk about. I don't want to give you improper information. He could probably talk more specifically about how our district attorneys use the law currently to prosecute those crimes. And would you be comfortable explaining how it will improve?
Sure, and without getting too much in the weeds, the theft, generally, the grading is based on the amount. Here, it's going to be a flat third-degree felony if it's your first offense. So there's great clarity in terms of this is what the penalty is going to be. So if you're possessing this kind of device, which has no legitimate lawful purpose, it's going to be a third-degree felony. Or if you're using it to defraud another individual, it's going to be a third-degree felony. The statute would make it so much clearer and so much more direct and so much more predictable in terms of what the penalties can be. And then the Sentencing Commission can then promulgate what the sentencing guideline range should be for this specific crime, as opposed to having to promulgate guidelines for a very broad theft kind of statute.
Thank you. Yes.
Representative, you can answer this, or any of the law enforcement officers. Pennsylvania is a little behind the times here in enacting this legislation. Kudos to you for introducing it, but I think you did some research on what the rest of the country have done. Haven't 30-some other states already have legislation like this?
That is correct. And actually, Natalie Potter pulled together every single one of the existing statutes and pending legislation in other states. And what we were able to do is look at our own laws and figure out what would best serve the men and women who wear the uniform on the street, as well as the men and women who prosecute these cases. And really, we drew very heavily from Florida. A lot of this, Florida seemed to be the epicenter of this type of crime. Many of the individuals who have been caught have some connection to Florida that come up through Pennsylvania, and they seem to have really addressed it well. So we drew very heavily on what they had done.
So do you think the lack of legislation here, the lack of a law, has made Pennsylvania more of a target for these people that come in from out of state?
I certainly think that you could make that leap. You know, we don't hear about as much of this going on in Maryland, and it could be that they have put in place laws that make us more attractive to come and commit this crime in Pennsylvania.
Detective Blaze, could you address that? Do you see that coming? Do you see people coming across the border from Maryland?
I can't say they're strictly from Maryland. Can't say they're strictly from Maryland, but we do have many people committing these offenses that are across the country, traveling opportunistically, seeking out points of sales to put these skimmers on.
And do they usually do it right along the highway?
I would say typically anywhere that there's an easy access point to travel quickly from state to state.
Thank you very much.